Hello everyone, Sawadee Krap. Welcome you all to the Trade Exhibition Conversation. Trade Exhibition Conversation program is a Technobiz initiative. The objective of this program is understanding about all issues related to the trade exhibitions and also the participating in the exhibitions successfully. This program is aimed for organizers, contractors, exhibitors, visitors, and also the trade promotion agencies and also the other organization involved with the trade exhibitions. As we all know very well, trade exhibitions play a key role directly and indirectly for every country's economic growth, as well as individual companies' growth. We have seen many changes in the style of organizing trade exhibitions recently due to COVID and also digitalization. So this program is all about trade exhibitions in hosting and the participation of all stakeholders involved. In this episode, we are focusing on the current scenario of trade exhibitions in Malaysia. Malaysia has opened up their country a few months ago and has been hosting international exhibitions very well. To learn about developments in Malaysia, we have well-experienced and well-respected exhibition industry specialist as our guest in this program today. Our guest today is Mr. Gerard Leuenberg. He is the general manager of the Informa market based in Malaysia. To brief you about Gerard, I think all his professional career is almost 30 years. He's with the organizing trade exhibitions in Europe and in Asia. So I'm very pleased to invite Mr. Gerard to join us to have a conversation in our trade exhibition conversation program. Gerard, please join us. Good morning, Gerard. How are you doing? Okay, let me unmute yourself. Self-muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Okay. Hi, good morning, Param. Good to see you, and nice to be here. As you know, I've always had a very weak spot for Thailand, and for you in particular. So I'm really glad we have this opportunity to catch up.
Yes, it's nice to have you. And kind of need to see you for in person for a while. So happy to see you online like this. And it's also good we have this trade exhibition conversation program so that we can discuss about our food. I can say our life, way of life. So I was telling you, in the beginning, I'm introducing that you got 30 years of professional career in trade exhibition. Can you talk about how has been journey for you? Enjoying it? You were sometime in Europe, sometime in Asia.
It has given me obviously gray hair, as you can see, but yeah, I'm very grateful for what I've been able to do in my working life, because a lot of it has to do with traveling, meeting people, visiting countries, understanding bits and pieces of different industries, of different job capacities. So in that sense, as a trade exhibition organizer, it's a very wide role with a very wide scope. You're not manufacturing coffee cups, for example. When it's finished, there's always improvement. And for me, it hasn't made me rich in a material way. The only way to do that in our industry is really to set up your own company or become, really high-level CEO of one of the big players. I've not done that, and I'm not in that position. I have a great job. I love my job. Yeah, especially at the moment in Malaysia. The journey has been, there have been disappointments as well in my career. Obviously, there have been challenges. You do live events. I've had volcano eruptions. I've had riots, diseases, COVID, the last couple of years. And I mean, it's not without its difficulties, but overall, it's very much a people's business. And having the opportunity to meet so many people from such a diversity of backgrounds and your specialties, I mean, that is really a gift. So I'm very grateful for my career, and I'm still enjoying it very, very much.
Well, I always say that our role is being a positive catalyst, you know, to accelerate the growth of the country or growth of the individual company. So as an organizer of technology, also organize, you also organizing events, and so it's always a nice feeling when you're being part of this growth of the country as well as the
Absolutely.
yeah.
I agree with that statement, Piram. Our activities do accelerate growth and development in certain industries, and in that sense, we are relevant. I mean, sometimes, when you're at parties or birthday parties, and people ask you what you do, and one is doctor, one is lawyer, etc., and you're an exhibition organizer, you get a response like, "Oh, that's great. I know how to organize the party of my mother or my spouse or whatever." And people do not realize the complexity of stakeholders and the positive contribution we give to economic growth. So I think, and that's also what I tell my teams and people working in this industry. It is very relevant what we do. I mean, and that in your business, I do a water show as well. I mean, and water technology, to give you an example, I mean, things which are being discussed at those events really make a positive impact on sustainability and on future generations. And I'm just giving water as an example, but there are many different industries. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so we are to be proud to be part of the exhibition industry, as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we keep evolving and understand the necessity of change, and the nature of society, everything changes, and I mean, COVID as a phenomenon has only, in my opinion, only accelerated the way we should look at our business, because some models are outdated, and I think we should be open to continuously modernize and also have open ears and eyes to newer generations, people with different ideas and new type of leadership, and yeah,
So so let's talk about Malaysia. Malaysia opened up the country, and you have already started in your Inform itself is hosting the exhibition. So how is the situation now? How is the response in terms of the space, footfall, and the way the people are behaving here?
Yeah. So Malaysia has opened the borders on April 1 of this year. We, as Informa Markets in Malaysia, we have run 3 trade shows so far. The first was in the food and hospitality area, and that actually overlapped with the date that the borders were open. So we were end of March. So automatically that was a very domestic oriented trade show. Now, from the standpoint of visitors, it always was this type of trade show, so national oriented. But of course, normally pre-COVID, we had a large number of international exhibitors, either individually or in country pavilions, displaying their products and services, looking for distributors, importers, clients in the industry, and those were not present. But overall, it was a very good time to do such exhibition, to inject, I would say, a dose of positivity in the hospitality industry, which has been probably hardest hit by comparison to any other industry here in Malaysia. So the people were just very happy to be able to see each other again. Good business was conducted, but the show size was considerably smaller than it was pre-COVID. But the turnout of visitors, on the other hand, compared to the scale of the show, was really, really good. The second show we held was in the end of June. It's a show in manufacturing that was already becoming quite large, still about half the size of what it was pre-COVID. I'm not so keen to compare everything with pre-COVID because we're really at a new situation. But okay, in terms of references, it's a machinery show, so that comes with some challenges. The transport, logistics. China plays an important role in that show, or Chinese companies, Taiwanese as well. But overall, there are 12,000 visitors, so a lot of people. And there we found that was the first time we could really focus on networking and actually partying a little bit, if I might say so. Bringing suppliers and buyers together, and people were just so happy to see each other, have a drink together, have some fun together, and so the level of expectations also wasn't that high, and it really surpassed that. So your success is of course also depending on what are people expecting, and in that industry, and it's a critical industry. I can tell you that it's an annual show. I've been quite involved myself in that industry as well. It's not the easiest companies to deal with, but overall the response was very, very good. And the third show we had was 2 weeks ago. It has a different character. It's a furniture show. It's an export-oriented show. It falls and stands with international buyers coming into Malaysia. So we were a bit concerned on that because it's still early days. Fortunately, we had about 2,000 people. So these are international furniture buyers per annum, and these people, they make orders. 2,000 international buyers coming to the show. The show was about, I would say, a third of what it normally was, because a lot of exhibitors still reluctant to be there. International, no participation, but also locally. And we've been quite, I would say, lenient in our terms and conditions, considering the situation. We were not pressing people, to be there, and this is your contract. You know what I mean. So we had very lenient rollover policies, as we say in the exhibition industry. People were thrilled. 2,000 buyers is not that much if you know that normally there are 6,000, but these people were buying a lot because they have not been buying for almost 3 years, and normally they source their furniture. They go to Malaysia, then they go to Vietnamese show, then Indonesia show, then the Canton show, and neither of those shows was taking place. And there was also less to choose from. So that's what I got back. So they just made quicker decisions, and they bought a lot. And that made, of course, our exhibitors very happy. So it's different types of shows we run so far with different profiles, but very positive reactions. And overall, the value of a face-to-face meeting is much more acknowledged than before, which is a good thing for us as exhibition organizers. People are very keen to meet each other, but I think that euphoria, might last 1.5, 2 years, but then we are, and I'm sure you're going to ask some questions about that, then we certainly have to change or adapt our delivery model, because then the critical attitude, and rightfully so, because we're talking about investments of companies to be at trade shows, I think that critical attitude will come back. But for now, it's very much a sort of party-like atmosphere. We can be together, meet together, buy stuff. So really good so far. And Malaysia as a country, not very different from Thailand, of course. It's also very attractive for people to come here.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is there. Hotels are cheap. Service level is high. The food is amazing. People are friendly. So people have not been to Asia from abroad from a long time. So that also plays a very positive role, of course, in the perception. So yeah, I look back on the first half year with really, really positive feelings, and we still got 4 shows to go in Q3, Q4 this year, different industries. 3 out of those 4 are doing really well on sales, 1 a bit less. That might have to do with the nature of that industry. That's the beauty industry. Yeah, we're not back at our pre-COVID level. We didn't expect to be there, but we're happy that we can do what we do and have satisfied customers, of course, and satisfied customers of our customers.
So the first, you said you have in the second show you have like 2,000 buyers from overseas. How is access entry into the country? Is it easy entry and on less hurdles for the foreigners to come into the country?
Yeah. Malaysia has gradually eased down the requirements for entry to the country. So at the moment, it's as long as you're vaccinated, it's quarantine free, hassle free to come into the country. It's no problem at all to come into Malaysia. There's no need to show any apps anymore all over the place, which used to be the case for quite a long time. There's no need for temperature measurements. It's just when you contract COVID, you're required to stay isolated for about 5 days. But that's common sense. That's not being reinforced. It's just common sense. So I would say the general attitude towards COVID in Malaysia has shifted a lot during the road, and of course the progression of knowledge, and it's very much looks like Europe, with the exception that we still use masks here indoor. Outdoor is not obligated, but indoor yes. But people are and we are so used to that doesn't really bother, and it makes sense as well. So yeah, that's the current situation in Malaysia.
And is Malaysian vaccination how much percentage has been vaccinated? Population got vaccinated?
I mean the policy. I mean, as a foreigner living in Malaysia, I'm quite impressed with how Malaysian government has handled that aspect of the situation. So the vaccination percentage of people in Malaysia is really high. I think it's 98% or something like that. That also has to do with, of course, restricting access to certain areas of shopping or entertainment, etc. Or if you're not vaccinated. So it's not really forced, but it's a bit forced in a sense. If you want to move freely, you have to be vaccinated. To me personally, that makes sense. Some people don't like that, but the big majority in Malaysia has accepted that, and the willingness to vaccinate in the beginning of the pandemic was relatively low. I think the information being given by government, the emphasis on importance of getting vaccinated has really played a positive role. And I actually don't know anybody who's not vaccinated here in Malaysia. It's also provided free of charge, and there were sufficient vaccines. I think that we have a very good minister of health here in Malaysia. So I think that's been done really well.
That's good. So let's talk about exhibition supporting agencies in Malaysia. You have this MySep. So how do they support organizers like you, in these COVID times? And also, I think now the industry is picking up now. So to encourage more foreign exhibitors and visitors, what kind of support the MySep is contributing?
Yeah. Now, MySep as a bureau is under the Ministry of Tourism. So that is different than in your country, Param, where TCEP, so Thai Convention Exhibition Bureau, is under the Prime Minister office. For us as trade exhibition organizers, that is a bit of a, I would say, strange situation, because we accelerate trade. So we would actually prefer to be dealing with, MITI, so Ministry of Trade and Industry, and not being seen as, mass gatherings, which was a bit of a problem during the pandemic. So trade exhibitions were considered mass gatherings, and mass gatherings were not very popular. So we were basically the last to open. As a industry, we have fought very hard to change that perception. MySep being under the Ministry of Tourism, with a KPI of attracting, in general, tourists to Malaysia, of course, doesn't really help that perception. But that's not the fault of MySep. Of course, they do, as an entity, definitely recognize the importance of business tourism, the importance of having conferences and shows organized in Malaysia as a destination. They're very active at the moment. They're going out a lot in the world to promote Malaysia as a destination. That's also good for me as a trade exhibition organizer. We want positive PR about Malaysia. It's a great place to be. It's a good place to invest. It's a good place to have trade exhibitions. So what that concerns, I'm really happy with this active attitude MyTap is displaying. For me, directly as a trade exhibition organizer, the support is it's there. I mean, it's there in the sense that, you know, some political heavyweights can and for example, the Minister of Tourism, she came to open our food and hospitality show end of March, and that's certainly with the help of MySap, and that also helps the perception of the show. So in that, but if you look at financial incentives, for example, those are fairly limited compared to TSAP. But on the other hand, I mean, we are commercial businesses. We should not depend on that either. So yeah, I think it's an evolution as well here in Malaysia, and at the moment I think there's a good opportunity to position Malaysia a bit stronger than in the past. Of course, TSAP has more resources, manpower, money, I would say, plus a different line to the Prime Minister. I think in Thailand, the understanding of the value of trade events is much more developed than in Malaysia at this moment. But I know a number of people who are really working very hard in this country to change that perception. So I'm very positive about the future here.
Yeah, I think the TSAP, when you're talking about TSAP, I think they're proactive and also forward-looking in looking at the future of the trade shows, in particularly for the benefit of the country. Of course, you said they have resources and also the both manpower and resources, financial support also there. But definitely TSAP is one of the very good organization in Thailand supporting the exhibition industry.
Yeah, and making Thailand very visible at the right platforms. Eh? So TSAP is very active in UFI, which is our Association of Exhibition Organizers, active in ICA, which is Conference of the Association meetings. So TSAP is very, very visible. And then, of course, that plays an important role in imaging Thailand, which already has an image of land of the smiles and hospitality. So it only enhances the values, you know, and people love to go to Thailand, and people love also to go to Malaysia once they know it and once they've been here. But PR-wise, we could still learn a bit from.
Yeah, you used to live in Thailand, so definitely I see there that you miss the Thailand. So
no, I mean in that aspect, yeah, that aspect, you know, that I would say the realization in Thailand of the importance. When you come as a young man or woman, you come to Thailand as a backpacker, and it caters for you. You get a little bit older, you have a bit more money, and Thailand caters for you. You get to go somewhere, Phuket, etc. You know, you become even older and maybe a bit more wealthy. You can play golf in Thailand. You know, so Thailand really, from I would say cradle to grave, values the influx of international people to the country in different roles, and I think that's really part of the Thai culture. And in hospitality, the nature of hospitality in Malaysia is not different at all. Malaysians are super kind people, and the culture and the food is fantastic. It's just it's the PR, and you know, and organizations like TSAP play a very positive role in that, in my opinion.
Thailand have one advantage that it has every level of infrastructure in place that makes the things easier. You know? So okay, let's move to
there's also, of course, a you know, a downside, and the reliance on tourism the last couple of years, of course, has made, you know, victims in Thailand, also in Malaysia, everywhere, of course, but I think especially in Thailand, where, you know, tourism is such an important source of revenue for so many people, that must have had a tremendous impact.
So I think there are many other organizations also involved in exhibition. I think association also, exhibition association in Malaysia also actively promoting the exhibitions. You are also some active member or committee member of the exhibition association, right?
Yeah. We in Malaysia we have MASEA, that's a Malaysian Association of Conference and Exhibition Organizers and Suppliers. So that is a very active president, Francis Theo. Trying to make the industry heard as much as possible, that we're talking about business events, that we're talking about economic acceleration, no mass gatherings, get the level up, get the image better, issues like recruitment, credibility of companies, the whole ecosystem of BE, so business events, venues, contractors, forwarders, everybody who's active in our industry here in Malaysia is involved in MASEOS as well. And is that we that's the voice towards government organizations such as the MATRADE, for example, which is the trade promotion arm, I would say, of MITI, so trade and industry, but also to, for example, MIDA, so that's the Industry Development Authority. There are different entities where we cross our ways with, and not just with MOTAC, which is tourism and art and culture, under which MICEP is positioned. So and MASEOS plays a role there, very important role.
Super.
My role, funnily, at my age, Piram, I am now the chairman of digitalization. Yeah. So I hope you realize what's happening here.
Okay. Let's move a little bit on conversation on the on virtual exhibitions. When during the COVID, because we were unable to organize physical events, and now there are lots of platforms came up on the virtual exhibitions. Now we're having this hybrid version. So what is your opinion about virtual exhibitions?
Now, it varies a lot. We've been moderately successful in virtual exhibitions. I think it very much depends on the industry. It's very and the level of digital adaptation we're dealing with. I mean, traditionally we deal with exhibitors, companies who like to exhibit. So those are companies who per definition use less digital marketing methods to get the message across. So they're relatively reluctant to go that area. Now, of course, COVID has forced a lot of people to look into that in a different way. So for us, I would say financially, it's not been very interesting, and I think that's for all exhibition organizers. It has also to do with the perception. Oh, it's internet, it's free, because everything is free on the web. So funnily enough, if you ask someone representing a company how much they're willing to pay for a business lead on the show compared to a business lead online, they don't really know the answer. But they're not willing to pay a lot for business leads online, strangely enough. Because the advantage is, of course, it's very transparent. What happens online, you can trace the customer journey, and etc. So for us, it also gave us very valuable insights and access to different groups who were traditionally not present at our exhibitions, nor as an exhibitor, nor as a visitor. So and those people now know us, and now we can have physical meetings again. We are getting those people also engaged with us. So we knew that we never knew them before. So I think that's a big plus. It's a continuous learning curve, I would say.
Sure.
If you look at hybrids, we are having hybrid pavilions. We had them at our last 3 shows. They worked well on 3 of the shows, mainly because we had samples. So there was something physical to try, to taste, to feel. There was furniture on our furniture show. So the exhibitor was not there, Chinese exhibitors, but the furniture was. We had a connection like we have now. and it worked. People were selling furniture on the show. Metal Tech, which is our manufacturing show, we had a big virtual pavilion, but there were no products, there were no machines. Nobody liked it. Food and hospitality, we had samples, also from Thailand, but from other countries. People tried it and it worked. So I think that the hybrid position depends also in which industry you're working, how you work it out, what is there to show, how proactive are you, how proactive are your customers. I think the people are now like, hey, I don't want to see you on a screen, I want to see you live, and that's why I go to an exhibition. So why you put on screens now to see other people, but again, if they're products and services, and looking at future, it's just a very good opportunity to get more people engaged than we traditionally have. I mean, more people from the same company can be involved. Not everybody is able to travel. Not everybody wants to travel. Corporates are cutting their travel budgets. I mean, they're also taking advantage of the situation. So I think the number of physical visitors, trade visitors of shows might go down in a couple of years because of those reasons. And then if you're not prepared to give any hybrid offerings, I think you're going to be in trouble. Combine that with digital product development, so changed needs of our customers to find their customers, and that's an area where we also could play a very important role. So I'm talking about 365 platforms, marketplaces, search engines, digital products, which are not so easy for us to develop because we think square meters, we think space. So we need different people. We need to get different people on board with a different mindset to help us to do that. And we're at Informa, we're very explicit on that. Informa wants to be a digital company in the future. So there's a clear vision at our leadership to do this. And it also for us, Piram, it's very important that for me in Malaysia, for example, to remain relevant for the new generation.
Yeah.
If you don't have cool digital products or develop these type of products, they think events. What happens when COVID strikes again? Then I'm out of a job. Oh, these are long days, long hours, low pay. I don't blame them. They go somewhere else. Yeah. So, and I think that's happening in our industry, and we must be prepared for those type of mixed offerings of products. That's what we do in Informa, and I think that's the right direction. I'm very outspoken on that here in Malaysia as well.
So, and also it is important to educating the exhibitors and the visitors how to utilize these platforms. That is also a big challenge. Make them comfortable to,
Absolutely.
That is a real hurdle, I guess. We have tools. You can combine a hybrid version. Elements are there on the show, but the educating, make them comfortable to utilize the platforms also.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's also your experience the last couple of years. It's a lot of hand-holding is required, from uploading videos to to tell people and deadlines and all those type of things, without any direct reward, financial reward for us. It's really to maintain the relation, and that's why I'm a bit worried. A lot of exhibition organizers will go back to what they think is pre-COVID, not realizing that the mindset of our customers and what our customers now, Piram, I mean the future generations. So the children of those family business, and at exhibitions we deal a lot with SMEs. So it's a lot of family business involved. The children, they look very differently at marketing than their parents. Sure. And they're going to take over. And if you are not servicing them in the way they expect to be served, they're going to think, hey, I don't want no exhibition. I'm going to do that differently. So you have to be able to engage with those people as well, and remain relevant for them. They just look differently at the situation. It's not, I would say, the old-fashioned beer drinking session with a number of clients on the stand. It's not going to cut it in the future. For now, maybe, and for certain industries, development will go faster and then others slower. But we have to be prepared to really change the nature of our business.
Yeah. So, the Chinese exhibitors is a big challenge. I mean, they're not able to participate. That's also affecting a lot of trade shows because of the Chinese zero COVID policy. How do you see, in the days ahead, of the Chinese exhibitor participation? I think they have reduced the quarantine to a couple of days now. I think they also opened up. As your leader in the exhibition industry, Informa, how you guys see the Chinese exhibitor participation in the future?
Yeah. Now, I mean, our business in Asia in general, by far the biggest chunk of our business is in China, and then Hong Kong also has a number of very big shows we organize. So the situation, of course, affects us a lot. We have actually moved a number of leading trade shows from Hong Kong to other areas in the world, to Dubai, to Singapore, for example. These are really large-scale exhibitions in jewelry, I think that leather, and the Cosmoprof, which is the leading exhibition in beauty. And we have very, very large exhibitions in China, very, very large. I mean, hundreds of thousands of square meter exhibitions, which could not take place, and also where a lot of challenges to roll over to the next year or the next quarter or whatever. So yes, that has affected our business. And then of course a lot of Chinese companies, exporting Chinese companies, at our shows all over the world, but mainly Southeast Asian shows. Now in Malaysia, contingent of Chinese exhibitors is relatively low compared to, for example, Vietnam. But we are still, of course, facing that reality. A lot of people cannot come, don't want to come because of the restrictions. But we also see changes, and we also see companies willing, just to go to that quarantine, even when it was still 3 weeks in China. For example, our Arab Health, which is one of the biggest healthcare shows in the world in Dubai, attracted hundreds of Chinese companies. So those people were willing to go to that show, conduct their business, go back and go 3 weeks in quarantine. So also here, it really depends on the industry, I would say. We see slowly more and more coming. I mean, I had Chinese exhibitors, not so many as normally, but at the Metal Tech show, a few Taiwanese also at our furniture show. So they and I spoke with them, and they said, I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to go to quarantine, but I want to be here because I want to do my business, etc. The easier it will be for them, the more will come back. And personally, I'm expecting an explosion at the moment. Chinese companies and Chinese people in general are able to travel again. They're going to go to our shows. So we are ready for that. Definitely. This year, as a transition year, definitely the participation from China is much lower than it normally is. So it affects us financially.
So because of this digitalization, a lot of companies, they cut down the business travels. Okay? Not only the buyer point of view, Exhibitor itself, in the past, probably, even a 9 square meter booth, if it depends on the markets, they send 2 or 3 foreigners or representatives come. Do you see this will continue in terms of the number of exhibit staff coming to the exhibitions from overseas? It will be downside themselves, the number of the people.
I think that will be the case. I think a lot of companies. But maybe it's also combined with more transparency and results companies will expect from exhibitions. Now having this experience with very transparent business matching tools online, and so you can really see what's happening. So I think the number of international attendees will lower as cost, safety. Some people don't like to travel, so a number of reasons. But the people who are traveling, either it be exhibitors or visitors, will be very serious, and that's what we've seen now this year. You know, people are super targeted. They come with a purpose. Very much, I would say, well, more than probably before, when also some people are going to the show because, you know, they go to the show, and we do know they don't really go to the show, if you know what I mean. But so I don't think that's something negative. I think that's actually something really positive. And we always talk about quality of our, you know, of our exhibitors and quality of our visitors, and this will increase, but it will also mean likely, I think, a concentration of trade shows. So in certain industries, companies will choose for the regional strongest show and don't do national shows, local shows, or at very small scale. I think that's a development we have to be prepared for, and at least I am in Malaysia. There's really certain industries where I want to focus on to be relevant for the region, and other shows which are more local, where the model will change a bit.
Yeah, and I think you hit the right point that it's no more quantity. You know, we don't need to talk about how big, how many. It's all about quality exhibitors, quality visitors, because they bring the business. You know, they're serious people coming for the show. That is, quality makes a difference. You know, and not the number of people.
I mean, and from both sides. I mean, I used to see a lot of shows which had a huge contingent of Chinese exhibitors. This is years ago, but this is, you know, these people were finally allowed to go out of the country. They were subsidized by governments. They set up the booth, they put on a poster, and they go shopping. And I mean, and you can't blame them. But for the quality of the show, they don't invite people. They don't put a lot of work on. You know exactly what I mean. For us as an organizer, it was all, oh well, you know, as long as they pay. But in effect, that should not be the case. We should really be, you know, delivering relevant platforms in terms of quality of products and services, content, and networking. And if we do that, I think the future of trade shows, without a doubt, is there. I mean, people do realize the value of face-to-face meetings, and they're willing to pay for it. So I'm optimistic, but changes will take place for sure.
So how is how much impact happened onto the trade show organizers in Malaysia due to the COVID?
I think, I mean, for everybody, it's been very tough. I mean, because income, your 2 years, your income is, you know, maybe a couple of percent of what it normally is. So you have your overheads, you name it, you know. So there have been retrenchment, there have been, you know, shorter work weeks, salary cuts. There have been people leaving the industry. They find different ways, you know, to feed their families, to put it as it is, because that just happens. You know, being part of the largest corporate in the exhibition industry, for myself and my team here, I mean, Informa has dealt with the crisis in an exceptional way, in my opinion. So we are relatively spared compared to smaller players, even though also we have to make some sacrifices here and there. But yeah, the challenge now is a lot of people left the industry and they just don't want to come, because, you know, and I think that's the same in hospitality, tourism industry, because they found different ways to sustain. Yeah, so I would say there are some serious challenges also here in Malaysia. I don't think that's any different in Thailand, is it, Tepera?
Well, you know, who else? I also get suffered because of the COVID, you know, downsizing your team, and you know, You see, though, if you're in exhibition industry, exhibition is the main source of income compared to any other, activities we do. I think that many of the people have difficulties and waiting for the normal life. Okay, I think Thailand also has started to show trade shows, but more of them, and most of them are more focused on the domestic, not international yet. So yeah, it's a challenging times, unexpected, unprepared. Okay, that is and yeah, unless you change your way of doing things, and the same thing like what you mentioned, that some people left. Even the manpower also is a big challenge, I guess, in the future. Right people into the exhibition industry.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but in my opinion, we really have to modernize our HR policies and just be realistic. This is not just COVID. I think this development was also before COVID very visible in Western Europe. I'm talking about the demands to work flexible, for example. It's not just COVID. I mean, it's actually pretty common sense for people why everybody's going in a traffic jam at 8:30 in the morning and back at 5 or 6 o'clock. It doesn't really make sense. And companies were already, of course, going in that direction. Also in Asia, it's just being accelerated by COVID. And again, I don't think that is a negative effect. It's just emphasizes for the need for us to think differently. If we want to, I mean, if you do now recruitment interviews, and I quite recently we have a new HR manager here, young guy, who's done a lot of interviews the last 3-4 months, and he's also pointing that out to me. It's so different than a couple of years ago. The way young people are looking at a job, and if we don't adapt the way we look at a job, and with 1-2% increment every year until you're 50, and then if we don't change that way of looking at it, they're not going to work with us anymore. And I work with us because that's how I look at it. It's not forced. It work with us. You have to be able to give them perspective, and it's okay if people leave after 3 to 5 years. It's really fine, and everybody now looks at the person as their own business, and this is a development which we saw, of course, in Europe already for many years. There's a lot of people flex employed. They're actually employed, but they all say they're entrepreneurs, but basically they work for an employer, but just on a freelance basis. And it gives them flexibility and also the possibility to charge a bit more.
And also, I think this work from home concept also they changed the way of doing working also, and everybody prefer to COVID times. So
yeah, and it's also hard, Piram, to change that after 2 years, because people, they built their routine around working from home. So it's child this home education, blah blah. So people built their routine, and all of a sudden it's back to the routine as before. That's hard for people. So we have to. I think we have to show flexibility in that context. I mean, that's how I look at it.
One of the we had issues of the COVID. One more issue we experienced, not just on exhibition industry, is the every industry, the logistics cost, shipping cost, triple, for various reasons. And for exhibitions, machinery display is one of the attractive things, so that you can bring the crowd, or make the interest for the visitors also. How it affected your shows with the machineries, because the huge cost.
We love machinery shows because these guys take a lot of space. So we really like that, as compared to IT shows where they take a 9 square meter or 12 square meter booth with software. I think two things here. Yes, the cost, it will certainly affect. I mean, companies. I had a machinery show quite recently, and we have global players who are really looking at the logistics. For example, to move it from the Thai show to the Malaysian show to the Vietnamese show, to be very efficient in that context. Of course, container prices have soared, so that's a real problem. And there's also a lot of uncertainty when machines will be delivered. I had a number of very large Chinese companies who did not want to sign contracts until their machinery was cleared by customs in Malaysia, which meant actually that we had to reserve their space until very, very last minute. Fortunately for us, for them, it was all on time. Well, if it wasn't, then we would have had, very large empty spaces at the show, because we also had to be flexible with those guys. So these matters do affect exhibitions, definitely. Companies will look at that cost element. They will look at that logistic element even more than before. It was already something which companies are looking at very, very carefully, but now even more. So it might have an effect on the size of machinery shows, on the type of displays, innovations, or are they using, showroom models which they have in a certain country to avoid all the shipping, clearing, etc. So maybe not the latest. All these. I think it varies per company, but that it will have an effect on our shows is without a doubt.
So how about the Ukraine war problem? Is it affecting? How do you see this one more problem of the Ukraine war?
Yeah, to be frank, I don't see it affecting our business here in Asia. Southeast Asia, Malaysia, in my case, in particular. That it might even, increase the interest in Southeast Asia, because Europe is in turmoil. Of course, effect on energy prices. So, oil and gas, energy transition, those type of topics, very relevant. So a lot of interest there, actually, in the shows we do in those areas here in Malaysia. Flights, I think there is a problem with flights all over the world. If that is a consequence of the Russian-Ukraine war, I wouldn't dare to say, but it probably has an effect on that as well. So we see that. I don't know if you've traveled recently, but I got kicked out a number of flights in the last couple of months, simply because of schedule change. It also has to do with workforce, etc. But I think it all adds up. I can't really say that it directly affects our business, but of course, companies who do a lot of business there and also with us, their cash is influenced. It will also influence their spend with us. So yes, it will have an influence. I just don't know how big. I think it's a bit too early for us to say, and relatively low impact so far in Malaysia. I'm talking about Malaysia.
Yeah. Okay, finally, Ron, before I end the conversation with you, so we're in the different times. We have post-COVID, pre-COVID, the new names now. For the exhibitors to be successful in participating in the exhibitions, what are your suggested good practices to participate in the shows?
Yeah, I think the most important is to really understand and align everybody in a company the reason of participating at an exhibition. What is the goal? What is really the goal we have? If you participate because you always participated, or if you participate because your competitor is participating, or if you participate because you have a good feeling about participating, or do you like the sales manager, or whatever reason which is not tangible, I think you should think twice. If you want to be successful, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to know what you want. Do you want leads? Do you want image enhancement? Do you want internal motivation? You can also combine all those goals. Is the CEO coming in early morning to kick off, for example, to make or salespeople love shows because it gives them leads without working too hard for it. So they normally love shows. Marketing looks at it quite scientifically. What does it bring? That CFO looks, ooh, cost a lot of money. CEO is very different, you know. Some people really love it, some don't. Internal alignment is very important. So goal setting, return on investment, return on objectives. I think that is critical. Last minute exhibitors tend not to be too successful. We do allow them, of course. For us, it's very often, oh no, yeah, that's it's another thing. But yeah, they're not successful because they don't prepare. They come last minute, so they don't really know what they want to get out of it. And in that context, we as organizers, you know, we have a lot. We can help these people. It's our job to deliver leads. It's our job to bring demand and supply together. So if we know what they're really looking for, and I'm not talking about 100 people, 500 people, I'm looking at 7 specialized engineers in a certain area. We have those profiles. We have those contacts. One of the journeys we made the last couple of years is really get to know our buyers, because we tend to focus on the people who pay our bills, which are exhibitors, but we should focus on the people who pay their bills. And if we understand that, we can help them to be successful in their business. But they also have to know what they're doing on an exhibition. So I think that's the most important. Prepare well, invite existing contacts. It's a very old one, but it's very, very relevant. Tell your existing customers that you are present at that and that show. Use social media, mobilize your teams, you know, make noise about it. It's also useful for us, obviously, but there's so much more you can take out of an exhibition participation, and it costs a lot of money. We all know that. It's not just the space people pay, you and me, and you know, it's everything around it, the stands, the hotels, you name it. So make it a real integrated part of your marketing campaign, and think very carefully about your goals. That's what I would do. That's actually not different before or after COVID.
Yeah, I think the prepared exhibitor do well compared to the unprepared. And a lot of people book the booths in early, but their preparation is in the last 1 month or 1 week before, and preparing it. And but as an organizer, blame goes on the success of the exhibition depends on not just only on the organizer per se, and its exhibitor preparation play key role. You know, if they get involved, utilize our, you know, we provide a lot of opportunities, lot of tools how they can promote themselves. Some of them they don't utilize it, or they don't get it. Okay, that is also a challenge I see. You know,
definitely. But that also has to do with, you know, personal objectives of people working. You know, as in normal life, you have to synchronize company objectives with personal objectives, and sometimes, Piram, it's also okay to be a bit pushy towards your customers and tell them, guys, come on, prepare. You're spending a lot of money. We don't want you to cry. You're gonna come to me, you'll be angry. I don't want that. I want you to be happy. But in order for you to be happy, you have to prepare well. So, you know, get a move. And it's hard because it's the day-to-day business consumes a lot of time for people as well. I do understand that, you know. And then, oh yeah, shit, we have an exhibition. Oh yeah, oh, a lot of work, blah blah. And it is a lot. It is a lot of work. But you know, you can also take a lot out of it, a lot. And if people realize that, and the help we can provide them in exhibitions and delivering the leads to them, then it's really worth it. Yeah, so I'm always advocating a bit of a scientific approach combined with the human aspects and the networking. That really works. If people know how many leads they will need to convert into orders, if people know which products make the highest margins, so they can display in a different area, and that everybody is aligned on that. You know, all these type of sales and marketing tricks help a lot.
Yes. Gerard, I'd like to continue the conversation much longer. We can, you know, probably another few hours. So let's end the conversation here. Thank you very much. You know, I really enjoyed. Given nice inputs. Any final, you know, remarks? for the
No,
audience?
I mean, I'm glad to be talking, of course, with a colleague in the industry, and you know, we go back a number of years at Param. Um, I'm of course looking forward also to be coming back to Thailand one in the near future. You know, be able to see you and a lot of old friends there. In the meantime, I think for the exhibition industry, we're actually in a fantastic position now to innovate. Our business will be good the coming 2 to 3 years. Slowly it will bounce back, but it will bounce back. The appetite is there for sure. This is really the time to innovate and yeah, and remain relevant, or maybe even become more relevant than before COVID. So I would say really think about your strategy, longer term versus short term. It's very tempting to just go now straight for the square meters to make up for 2 years of, you know, no shows. But that is not going to be sustainable. That's my opinion.
Gerard, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, you know, you really enjoyed this conversation. Fantastic. We'll catch up again soon. Okay, and
We will.
stay safe. Yeah, enjoy the
Good.
rest of the show. Successful to you as well. Yeah.
Stay there. Good luck, Bram. Thanks very much. Take care.
Thank you very much, Gerard. Thank you very much. Guys, that's the conversation on the current scenario of the trade exhibition in Malaysia with Gerard. So I'm hoping that you find this session, you know, useful and learn something what's going on in Malaysia, and also some of the advice given by the Gerard on the various aspects of the hosting, participating, you know, trade shows in the inner part of the world as well. Thank you all. Bye bye for now.